This is one project we're doing together. And the second project...
Can I make a full screen, please, because it's...
I'm afraid my PowerPoint will have a problem. That is why I'm not going to risk, but I will try. Because two images are always vanishing. I don't know why. And the second project we're working on, this is the project of Georg, and I'm associating it since 5 years. It calls Local Modernities, and this project is exploring the late modernistic architecture that was developing in the countries of Soviet Union, Eastern Bloc, Northern Africa, Middle East, Southeastern Asia, and Latin American countries. But I mean, after one project, when we came to the sweet 60s, the first project, when we came to the point of realization, so next year in November at the Museum of Architecture, Central für Architecture in Vienna, there is going to be the opening of the exhibition, and it's going to focus only on Soviet architecture of that particular period, starting from the 60s till mid-80s. Now I'm going to get back again to the resolution that was signed by the Ministry of Culture. First time when they presented this resolution, the expert group of the Ministry of Culture, they refused. They rejected this resolution. And what was the idea? The idea is that the owner of the movie theater, the theater is not public, it's privatized. So it's not the question of privatization. So now you're dealing with another phenomenon, that the private person alienated the part of its property in favor of Echmiadzin. This is Armenian Apostolic Church, the headquarters. And what was the following step that Echmiadzin was supposed to do is just to destroy the building and build, instead of it, the church that was destroyed in the 30s during the Soviet period. Sorry?
Same place.
Yeah, in the same place. In fact, that place was the center of the city, and the place where the Moscow movie theater open air hall is. This is not the place where the church was built. It was built in the place of the main building. Next to it, there was a mosque. And the mosque was, instead of mosque, there was built the Union of Artists. But nobody cares about, of course, about the mosque. And the idea was just we're need to build the church. And the other thing is that just one block further, there is another church under construction, and I'll show you this church later on. But here we're coming to one interesting aspect. There is one detail missed. This resolution was forced by the Prime Minister and our Prime Minister, and here you can see the article, the text by our Prime Minister, The End of the State of a New Form of Societal Organization by Tigran Sargsyan. So he is kind of like basing on the works of Yama and other intellectuals. He's just foreseeing the end of the state system, the national state. But on the other hand, so he's giving the quite interesting analysis, but the resume, in fact, is really, just a second. Armenian world. So I just quote this part. History testifies that after the loss of statehood, the Armenian people demonstrated an alternative form of self-organization that helped this nation to survive. The church came in to take the function of self-regulation. As such, the methods and the form of organization the church used were complying with the network logic. So here you can see that church, in a certain case, becoming like a consolidating tool of the nation, of the future development of the nation. And this logic is in a very subtle way come across to the neoliberal culture, neoliberal policies, how like neo-conservatives came to power, and church, in fact, and religion came to substitute the ideology that had gone. Because here we are coming to a point about which we had a very interesting discussion yesterday after René's and Irene's presentation. And this is a question concerning the Soviet past, the communist past, the past which relates to the alternative social order, the past which concerns with the modernism, and how today we're dealing with the certain strategies and tactics which are oriented to make the society just to forget about it. And now I'm coming back to the images, and I want to show you the two images displayed next to each other. This is in fact the images which I use as a start for my text, which is going to be in the red thread e-journal, which is just disclosing the transformation of the urban space in Yerevan and other cities in the period of 60s, and I'm focusing particularly in the period of 1962 and 1967. The thing is that in 1962, the monument of Stalin was displaced. And in 1967, the other monument was erected. It was the monument of Mother Armenia. For 5 years, that podium was empty. And the interesting thing was that when I was doing my researches, because it's really hard to deal with the history of the 60s, because mainly it's not written. And you're dealing with different other sources and dealing with the oral history. And when you're dealing with the oral history, all of a sudden I confronted the people, professionals, even the professionals, they had like a kind of like a very strange attitude towards it. Like, yes, we remember that the monument of Stalin was displaced, but when it was? It was in 1956, after the plenum.